Hello, everybody. This is John Browning with the Building Your Life podcast once again. And today we've got a guest from currently in Thailand, I believe, and travels extensively. But generally speaking, tell me if I'm right here, Edward. Your residence is in the UK. Am I right?
My residence is in the UK. Yeah, I spend a lot of time in Mexico, but yeah, I'm based from a tax perspective in the UK.
Right. So, I mean, nobody can introduce yourself better than you. We're going to talk a little bit today about some of the similarities and differences of the living in the UK versus the United States, and also this idea of living worldwide and how it's not impossible and actually quite possible, and maybe some of the things and experiences that you have had and how you go about doing that. But no, again, nobody can introduce yourself better than you. So I'm going to let you do that. Tell everybody what it is that you do and more importantly, why you do it.
Absolutely. So I run a client acquisition firm called Quality Client Acquisitions. Key is in the title there. We work with sophisticated wealth professionals who are looking to become less referral reliant and to actually more implement a system so that they know they can have predictable and consistent relationships coming through the door when those referrals just have the feast or famine cycle that tends to come with referrals. It's the best type of lead that you could possibly have, but equally you're putting your eggs in someone else's basket. Unfortunately, you're hoping that you're going to get referred to someone, and that's not a great form of business development. It's passive, and those referrals are fantastic. But I think in the modern day of financial services, I think a bit more of an active business development needs to be introduced to people's pipelines.
Yeah, it kind of goes with the saying of almost anything in life and business, wealth management, etc. Hope is not a strategy. Just you know, putting your money or your business out there for with no strategy isn't a strategy at all.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
so Edward, Thailand. I've been there one time. My daughter was on a missions trip, and I went there and lived and worked a little bit with her for one week, and then mom and dad went to the resort for the next week. So so it was probably not the definitely not the same as actually living in Thailand. But when we were there, the people, generally speaking, very, very friendly, but lived on an entirely different level than almost anywhere here in the United States. So curious as to what you're doing in Thailand, what your what you see there as being the same and different, um, that we wouldn't normally think about being here in the United States. Most of our listeners.
Yeah, well, they're very polite. I love Thailand. It's a really, really friendly country, fantastic food, lovely beaches. Bangkok was a great hub, but just to experience things from other people's shoes is something that I'm a big advocate for traveling for that reason. So yeah, no, I was already in India visiting some clients. I thought I'd nip over to Bangkok and do the same. And then I've heard a lot of good things about the islands, and I wanted to experience that myself. So I decided, hey, let's have a little bit of a time out here, and they've got some shark diving, which is a benefit too. So, but in terms of differences and similarities, well, price that definitely comes into it. Access to beauty, wonderful islands. I mean, I'm from a wonderful island in England, but I'm not sure they're comparable. It's like night and day. But yeah, no, it's really nice, really friendly. Everyone that you meet just they're always keen to help and they're happy that you're here. That's one thing I keep hearing. Thank you so much for choosing to come to Thailand.
Yeah, like
Not many.
everybody understands that, right?
Yeah.
From every vendor, the person at the regular grocery store, not the tourist place, they all understand that that helps their economy. And sometimes here in the United States, we sort of take that for granted, right? It's like, Like there are people that come here to visit
Hmm.
America, and they're spending money, and that helps our economy. And yet, unfortunately, not everyone here is as polite and helpful as in some of the other countries there. But I know Thailand, just the beauty there and the uniqueness of the terrain and the water and everything else is just not comparable to many other places in the world.
Yeah, not from what I've seen so far. I mean, I'm very fortunate to live in Mexico, so we do have great beaches, but going and seeing some of the temples, for example, I'm off to go see some of the mountainous areas like Chiang Mai afterwards. I'm really looking forward to that. But so far,
Yeah.
the food is just fantastic. I can't complain. I really
And if
can't
you're a
complain.
coffee drinker, if you are a coffee drinker, the coffee there is unbelievable. Just
Oh,
walk down the street, you'll see a stand, right? And then you don't have to go to a Starbucks or something like that. You get the best coffee and maybe in the world. I don't know. Some Colombians I know might disagree with me, but
yeah. It good, fresh, quick, instant coffee type style. I mean, it's not instant coffee, but if you want good coffee that's ready, and that same with the food. I mean, not waiting on food was one of the big culture shocks to me. It's like, no, your food is just ready. Like,
yeah,
oh,
like
fantastic.
now.
I'm not sitting around waiting for anything. And I've got a strong stomach. Like I say, I base myself a lot of the time in Mexico, so I can go straight to the street vendors knowing I'm absolutely fine. Other individuals might not be, but I've got all the sufficient pills and everything that I know that I need for this because I've been through this before. So I'm all good. That's where you get the real local, actual Thai experience or whatever country it is that you might be in. And I think
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people are really looking for. So yeah, I really, really am enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit because we here in the United States complain a lot about when we talk about wealth management, what a big part taxes are uh,
Hmm.
with our wealth management, and how important it is to mitigate, not eliminate, but mitigate, our tax situation. And yet, over in Europe and in many other places in the world, they have it a lot worse than we do here in the United States. There are certain states here in the U.S. that are just about as bad as Europe, where I mean the effective tax rate is roughly what 70% in many areas of Europe.
Yeah, it can vary quite a lot. Definitely, I can only speak from a sort of a UK tax perspective, but you definitely want to be making the most of mitigating and minimizing taxes where possible. But if you're a what we call, PAYE, a regular employee, there's not much you can do besides match what your company gives you as a pension. And then you can go away and we have a few options. So just the same things as you have in the US, just different names, but the same sort of wrappers. So we have an ISA, which is like your Roth, and then we have a lifetime ISA you can use for a first time home or retirement or emergency medical care if you wanted to go privately. And then we have something called a self-invested pension plan as well that you can use, which that can be rather beneficial, especially for self-employed individuals. So, but it's, similar themes. It's you get taxed on the front end or the back end. The government are always going to go and get those. So try and mitigate where possible. I think you and I are probably both in agreement. We had a little chat beforehand that if I thought the government was spending my money wisely, I would be more than happy to be paying them more of my taxes. But as Jamie Dimon put it, it's a little bit of a swamp. So, especially right now, currently in the UK.
Yeah, I think everywhere. I think we all we all kind of see it, and it's just yeah, we need government, we need some of the services that they provide, and yet I mean, I don't know, we don't get political on this channel, but I think
Mhm.
almost either side of the street that you're on in terms of politics, you have to recognize that um, the government is certainly far from efficient. At least you have to acknowledge that. And then there's just a lot of waste that you wouldn't do in your personal household.
Yeah, monopolies don't tend to be the most efficient thing in the world because they don't need to be, right?
They don't need to
So,
be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But, to your point, here in the US, we have like lots of different tools to use, but a lot of people just are not aware of them. And it's important
Hmm.
to note here that, I'm not a tax advisor. You're not a tax advisor. I'm a financial advisor, but I don't give financial advice on this channel. You're not a financial advisor. We just want to make that clear, that this channel is not for financial advice. I would need to talk with you individually because each individual situation is different. That said, we can talk about some things that people aren't aware of, or often aren't aware of. Like in your case, you mentioned in the UK, they have essentially a little, maybe something similar to what our health savings accounts are, that not everybody qualifies for, but many people do and don't realize it, or many people do. And then they spend that health savings when they
Hmm.
don't have to. And it's triple tax free here in the States.
Hmm.
So it
Yeah.
is literally never taxed, and you can invest it and it grows with the market, assuming you invest it wisely, and never ever taxed ever. It's the single most powerful way to save for your retirement and your medical needs. And what constitutes a medical need is you go to the drugstore and get a bottle of Tylenol, and
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be like I had surgery or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
as you age, do you think you're going to have more medical expenses or less medical expenses? My guess is more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
If you're
not
young and you have them, maybe your parents help you out with them a little bit. But if the older you get, typically people tend to have a few more health problems. So
right.
that's
Right.
why I focus on spending the money now to make sure I keep my health in as good a shape for as long as possible. But we're very fortunate. We have something called a lifetime ISA. So you're, again, not financial advice, but you're taxed on the money pre it going into your ISA. So your lifetime ISA. And you're allowed a £4,000 allowance for that per year. Whatever you put into that, the government will actually give you 25% free. So if you put 4,000 in, they'll give you 1,000 free. And then you have your stocks and shares ISA, which you have 20,000. But if you choose to use your lifetime ISA, well, then you'll just have the 16,000 of remaining balance there. And then that's tax free on the way out. So that's actually very beneficial there. So you can take the money in, whilst you're earning less money at the beginning of your stage, you have the small cupcake now. Yeah, okay, they get a little bit of the small cupcake now, but when it's a nice, large, big cake later on in life, that's when it's much more tax beneficial. And then if you're looking to, if you're in a fortunate position that you're putting away £20,000 per year, we have our self-invested pension plan as well, where you get taxed on the front end, but you can put up to £60,000 per year in that, and they will actually give you an additional 20% on top of that too. But again, that gets taxed on the way out. So there's no way to avoid it, but you can minimize and mitigate.
Yeah, I like that analogy because, with the exception of the HSA, the health savings account, which if you
Mhm.
qualify is never, ever taxed, not going in, not after growth, not coming out.
Uh-huh.
But they don't give you anything on top of that, which is nice
Yeah.
there in Europe. So they encourage you by giving you back some of what that's a nice feature. We have in many cases, if you have what they call a 401k, 403b, or something like that, when you work for a company, that they'll match
Mhm.
on that, and that will grow, and usually, but not always. Sometimes you can work it so you're paying your taxes up front, but then the company contribution, you're going to pay tax on the way out. But
Mhm.
there are ways that, and if you understand these ways, it's very important, especially as you approach, say, at age 65. Once you pass age 59 and a half here in the States, you have the option to convert those dollars that you didn't pay any tax on the way in, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. That cake is getting bigger, and you're paying what would you rather pay 70% on $10,000 or $100,000?
Right.
I'm thinking
Okay.
10, would be better. So,
Yeah.
but at 59 and a half, you can convert it. A lot of people just don't know that that's possible, or they know it's possible, but how do I go about doing that? And
Hmm.
so that's what Guardian Rock Wealth helps people with is yes, we'll help grow the portfolio, we'll help you invest, and that is a big part of it. But almost, if not as big a part of it, is how do you mitigate those taxes just by understanding and knowing the tools that are available to you. Very legal tools that the government put in place for you to use. But if you don't know about them, the government's not going to tell you about them necessarily.
No.
So, because they
I'm
like
very
it.
fortunate. I'm very fortunate. I grew up in a family with a father who was a financial advisor and worked in financial advice. So he passed that knowledge along to me, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And so therefore, I'm in that position, and that's my ultimate goal. Aim is to, once work is optional for me, I want to be able to go out. I'm in the process of actually doing my securities exams and things at the moment. And then I would love to be able to give this financial knowledge to people just within schools. I mean, we had one talk on finance, if I can even call it that, when we were younger, and the sort of advice was, if any of your parents really love you, they'll buy you a house in this area where we're living because it's the fastest growing student town in the UK. And it was like they were just telling a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds this as if they should have gone and taken this information and said, some guy has told us you need to buy us a house. I'm sure
Well,
plenty of parents did that, right?
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, lots of them went out and bought their kids a house. Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's it's here in the States, it's the same way. I mean, we educate on mathematics and reading and history and things like that. And yet there's really no course. There's in some schools around high school, they'll have what they call the the life course where it teaches you a little bit about budgeting. But
which is an
when
important
my
thing.
it's very important. Absolutely. It's fantastic that they at least have a course on that. But when my kids went through it, I have six kids, so they all went through this course and minimal value. It didn't teach them really anything about, how to mitigate taxes, how to grow and make your money actually work for you.
Yeah. How to make sure that you're putting things in the right tax wrappers, essentially, as well, because different in things that different equities, different whatever it might be, certain specific stocks versus funds should probably go in different wrappers depending on the time horizon that you might want them in, tolerate, the risk you're willing to tolerate with those sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing.
Are you coming, right? So,
You're right. Yeah. That hey, it gives me a job, I suppose. So I should. I'm happy for that. So
yeah,
tell me
I do.
about some of the other. So you've got your own business, right? And a lot of our listeners also have their own business. And one of the ways that you can put yourself potentially in a better tax position or better position to save for retirement here in the US, and I'm assuming in Europe as well, is by having your own business. And here in the US, even if you get a W-2 and you work at a firm, if you have a side hustle, it has to be a legitimate side hustle, right? You have to actually be generating money on a consistent basis. Otherwise, it's considered a hobby by our
Mhm.
taxing authority. But if you have a legitimate side hustle using your talents to do something, doesn't have to be big, but does have to be a real business, you can do that, and the tax benefits of doing that can be substantial. And your entire life is built around your business. You don't have, it's not a side hustle, this is what you do. But
Right.
talk to us a little bit about why it can be more tax beneficial to have a business or also have a business.
Well, just from a UK perspective, for example, we get a 12,500, I think it's £570 allowance nowadays. And so that would be non-taxable in terms of income tax. We have what we call national insurance, which is a 9% tax. You get you start paying around £9,000. And that's just for general infrastructure. So hospitals, roads, bin services, those sorts of things. So a lot of self-employed individuals will make £12,570 a year, and then they will actually start paying themselves out in dividends because it's a much greater reduced rate. So that would be one of the ways that they can then start to do it. It
Yeah.
obviously, again, pros and cons for everything. If you're looking to apply for a mortgage and you only make £12,570 a year, well, then, you can only borrow about four times what you earn. So you might not, well, you won't be getting on the housing ladder with that amount, unless you're just so buying outright. But no, a lot of people will do those sorts of things instead. But I think really just putting away the money in the first place is something that we've sort of spoken about previously, right? In terms of even sophisticated individuals, Henrys, high earners, they aren't aware, and lifestyle inflation starts to creep in. And oh, great, I got a bonus. I'll go on a nice holiday, or I got a pay rise. Like time to get a new car, and it's delaying the investing as opposed to if you're 20 years old and we assume the market returns about 10% a year, which it historically has, then you'll get an 88x return on investment. Whereas if you wait 5 more years, it's halved. Another 5 years, and that's halved again. So you're only getting 22x as opposed to the 88. So, I mean, I always love the Tony Robbins example. If you're 18 years old, you put $300 away for 8 years, then you never put another penny away. You've put about 29,000 away and you're retired with somewhere around 1.5 to 2 million if you never invest anything else again. And I just think young people knowing this information would maybe make slightly different life choices about maybe I don't need to buy that pair of shoes or that coat that really I'm buying because it's going to impress other people. And they might realize, hey, if I spend £100 here, then I'm going to actually be getting the effective of nearly £9,000 when I'm older. That's quite a big difference. So
Yes.
that's where the knowledge comes in, and I wish more people were aware of it. And it takes the burden
And
off the government as well, right? If you aren't reliant on the state for in the future, you can choose to voluntarily give up your pension. You can choose, I don't want my 12,000 a year. I don't want it. That would ideally what I would like to do. And I'd like to be able to say, hey, just give it all to charity. Give it to charities that are meaningful and purposeful for me.
yeah. And it's very much the same, by the way, here in the United States. Just the some of the terms are different, but there's a lot of similarities there where
Hmm.
if you have your own business, and again, if you put things in the right accounts at the right times, and it's definitely the same in terms of if you put away even a small amount when you're younger, and again, maybe not have to have the very top of the line Nike shoes or whatever it is that
Hmm.
you think will make you happy in the early years. What a huge difference that makes. And even when people have the knowledge, it's like, do they have the belief?
Hmm.
Do they act or execute? Right? You can have this great plan and not execute it, and it's not going to work for you. So even having the knowledge, just I haven't cracked the code yet
Hmm.
on most, not all, but on most young people to have them fully grasp what that means. That $1,000 invested today, or 100 or $25 a month, whatever
Hmm.
you can do, can become a $1.5 million when you're, say, 65. And if you do it right, it can potentially be $1.5 million tax free by the time you're
Right.
65. If you know the rules and you actually execute on the plan consistently.
Yeah.
So I wish I had cracked the code on being able to explain it in a way that these younger people would truly understand. Yeah,
Sacrifice now or sacrifice later. You get to choose. You get the choice of which you want to do.
that's
But
right.
unless it's something you really need to ingrain. I mean, for example, back to the fact you're saying, we teach people maths. right? Well, we teach people maths and then we give them homework so that's reinforced, and then we go through it in the next lesson. And these are again things that people should be probably taught in terms of it's not saying don't live now because when I'm 28 now and I'd give every single penny that I have to be 18 again. Don't get me wrong, but that's not an option. So therefore, sacrifice a little bit now and then look to reap the rewards later. That's it's almost certain that I will live to 65, God willing. So I should probably be prepared for it. And if something happened in the meantime, well, at least other people in my life will benefit from that situation. I won't be here to worry about it, to be honest. So
That's right. That is very true.
I like to deal with probabilities. So the probability is I'm almost certainly going to be there. So I should probably plan for that event. But it's why again he's not a financial advisor, but I'm a fairly big advocate for Dave Ramsey in the sense of he just says, put an emergency fund in place. God, that was a hugely important thing in my life. I remember my dad always saying, put 3 months in the bank. And I was there thinking at 18, how do I save 3 months of my salary in the bank? And then he says, then you put six. And I was like, six, nine, 12. And I was thinking, how do people do this? But consistently, as you mentioned, is the way to do it. So just have that emergency fund. Make sure you don't have any high interest debt. A lot of people just paying the minimum on a credit card, or I know like leasing a car nowadays, the amount of 100,000 plus cars, you might see two of them in front of a house that's worth less than the cars. And you're just there
We
thinking you're
we
spending
my wife and I have
800 a
noticed
month
that.
on
Yeah.
huh? Like if you
Yeah.
were putting 800 a month away consistently for the next 3 to 4 years, that would be a substantial amount of money.
Yeah. When the combined price of the cars in your driveway is more
Mm-hmm.
that are by the way depreciating by the hour is
Mm-hmm.
more than what you pay for the roof over your head and where you spend most of your time,
Mm-hmm.
you start to question, right? You have to start to wonder, okay, is this the highest and best use of my resources? So,
But it's all about choice. Like if you're a huge car fanatic and you're willing to choose, hey, I want to drive a nice car and I want to have less in retirement, well then fair enough because you've made an educated choice. You had all of the information and you chose what you wanted, which is the whole purpose of money. It is a vehicle,
it's a
ironically.
tool. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it wasn't the choice of words I meant, but yeah, it's a tool to give you what you want in life. And so as long as you have that knowledge, and I think that's really what we just want to share here is get as many people to know these things as possible. I have not used algebra since I've left school. I can't remember how many shells are in an atom or how many electrons and protons are in each shell or whatever, but people aren't taught important things like, hey, maybe you should learn some DIY. That would probably be relatively useful for most people who are probably going to own a home. Budgeting, yeah, spend less than you earn. Oh, make sure you put money away for future you because at a certain age, you won't be able to work, right?
Mhm.
That's should probably take care of future you as well as you in the now.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't enjoy life, but use all the tools in the toolbox. They all serve a purpose and they're there for a reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have probably at least a dozen, maybe more, screwdrivers in
Mm-hmm.
my toolbox, and they all serve a different purpose. None of them are exactly the same. Some are bigger, smaller, shorter, longer. Some are Phillips head, some are Torx, some are flathead. But man, if you're trying to use the wrong one, it doesn't work, or it certainly doesn't work very well.
Yeah, might work in
So
the short term, and then 3 months later, you've got that problem that you had 3 months ago, and now you've got to try and deal with that all over again, and it ends up costing you more money or more time and more problems. So, getting it sort of right from the beginning, that's where individuals like yourself, that's where you really help people. Once and
right.
done, you might have made a mistake whilst you're younger, but you're never getting any younger than you are now. You could be 50, and if you've still got this wrong, it's still best to try and figure this out today rather than kicking the can down the road and saying, oh, well, we'll deal with it in 5 years then, won't we? No, it's like, no, deal with that one now, because the longer you wait, same as your investments, the larger the problem compounds.
Right. Right. Yeah. My daughter, just a quick example. My youngest daughter, she's 19. I'm going to tell on her here. She's going to say, Dad, you're talking about me in the podcast. But she she bought her own car, which was great. It
Mhm,
was like a $2,000 Ford Mustang, 2007. So that
mhm,
tells you, with 150,000 miles on it. So that tells you the quality of the car, right? It's not the best, and it came with its whole set of problems. And I mentioned it to her. I was like, "You're gonna need to change the tires. You're gonna need to change the brakes. You're leaking some sort of fluid out the bottom. We're not sure what that is yet." and,
mhm,
and I said, "This is going to require. I know you got it cheap, and it's a cool car that you wanted, but this is going to require resources, the tool we call
mhm.
money, to fix it up." And
Mhm.
she's like, well, you'll help, right? and
Yeah.
we've helped a little bit, but this whole idea concept that, hey, I got this really good deal on a car, maybe it's not a really good deal. And the same applies to a lot of things, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, you know,
No, ironically, a lot of the richest people I know, they do not drive anything mega luxury. It's not like all of the 23-year-olds that I see on Instagram and they all have their Rolls Royce and then they have Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And it's like, no, they might drive like a relatively nice car. They might drive like a 10-year-old BMW 5 Series or something like that. Or they might drive like, a decent Honda or Toyota, something reliable, whatever it is. But they never have these super luxury cars. I can only think of one individual that I know, and they have a Bentley. And okay, having a Bentley is a wonderful thing, but it's not a Lamborghini. It's a little bit more useful in that sense, especially with current oil prices. But let's probably not go into that one. Um,
yeah, right. Yeah, that and, that is the thing, and I'm not here to tell anyone, because I'm all about using the tool we call money to build your best
mhm,
life, right? That's the whole theme of everything that we do here. If an amazing car is what really does bring you joy,
mhm,
and you have the resources to do it without sacrificing something really important like your health or your family or something like that, go do it. Use that money to bring you joy, but consider whether or not 6 months from now or three
mhm,
months from now, it's not sitting in your driveway and you're like, wow, I can only haul one person in this Corvette. Or, it only comes with space for one more person and no luggage room, essentially. Is
uh-huh,
this really bringing me joy or not? But the same thing goes to, people. Let's move it down the scale a little bit. Absolutely love,
mhm,
and it brings them joy. Starbucks coffee. And it costs, I think, now, I haven't been to Starbucks in a long time, but I think it costs close to $10 for a cup of coffee. Now that to me is insane, but
yeah,
to some people it brings them joy. If it brings you joy, go do it if you have the resources. But
yeah, I
consider if it
agree.
really brings you joy or not. Right?
It's a thing I see in Mexico because Starbucks is almost universally priced, being a franchise, right? And I see people, the average salary in Mexico City is probably about $1,000. Don't quote me on that, but you're spending 6, $7, post tax on a coffee. So you've already
Yeah.
paid tax, and then now you're spending $7 on a coffee. And it's like, again, if you're going treating it whatever it might be, fair enough. If that really brings you joy, you go for it. But if you're doing that every single day, again, hundreds of dollars a month that you're doing on coffee. Coffee's one of the largest markup items there are. I mean, it costs virtually nothing. And is the difference between it? I think that's where it really comes in, is the difference between the coffee that you could make yourself at home and that Starbucks, plus the time that you wait in line for the Starbucks, then get it. You've already driven out of the way for it quite often. It All of these things just add up
Yeah.
and they don't make sense to me, but if they make other people happy, then all power to them. But
Everybody's
as
different.
long as they're willing to have the consequences in the future, where it's like, damn, I really enjoyed those Starbucks 40 years ago. I can't imagine many people are going to be saying that, right?
That's right. Yeah. And yeah, it was really another good point that I kind of heard you say there too is there are taxes that you must pay and there are taxes that you choose to pay. Many people
Hmm.
don't think about that. When you buy that nice car, not only do you have your regular here in the States, not only do you have your regular sales tax that you pay, you
Hmm.
also pay what they call a luxury tax, which is another tax on top of that. So you're
Yeah.
choosing to pay that tax.
Hmm.
And every time you buy something, you're choosing to pay a sales tax in almost every area of the country here in the US that I know of. There's a sales tax of some sort. Some of them, many of them are in the 7 and 8% of whatever you're buying. And that
Hmm.
adds up too, but most people don't think about it.
Yeah. No, it was one thing that surprised me when I went to America about a decade ago, and I saw the price of something. I think we were going through an airport, and I needed some food, and I was like, "I'll get a McDonald's," and it said whatever price it was, and then it came out, and they rung it up, and it was like twice the price. At least in the UK, they tell you the price, and that is the price. And it's like, okay, I'd have to do the mental maths in my head to work out what something costs. They just tell me the price.
Right.
That one was a bit of a culture shock to say the least.
Right.
But
Yeah. Well, they have something too that I understand. Like when you go to Europe, you don't necessarily tip the waiter, right?
yeah, it depends on it. I think most people would, but not
Yeah.
in the same way as like in the US. Again, when I went to the US with my family, and it was like there was five of us. They said there's 20% gratuity included, and then they expect you to then tip 20% on top of that. And
So
so
almost
a lot of
50%
these,
more.
right, exactly. So in like a lot of these places, like where I go in Mexico nowadays, a taxi that was 20 minutes used to be £2. And now it's 15 because a lot of Americans are coming down and then they're going and with the whole tipping culture, they're going out and they're tipping enormous prices and prices are going up and the peso is going up in price. It's strengthening versus a weakening dollar. And these prices, they are going to sort of clash and but again, I think these are the posh problems, the champagne problems we were maybe talking about a little bit beforehand, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were talking about that before. Some of the things that we complain about, those of us who are fortunate and maybe fortunate, maybe we made some good decisions at some point along the road to put us in this position, but we tend to have what we call champagne problems, which are, other people would love to have our problems, right? So we do want to acknowledge that and be appreciative. But, uh, I think hopefully what people got from this conversation is that if you have the knowledge and you think through what you're doing and how you're doing it, you can put yourself in a much, much better position just by making the right decisions with the end in mind, right? Not with what's happening.
Avoiding little decisions, right? That's
Exactly.
often the big thing is, as opposed to making all of these great decisions, just avoid some of the wrong decisions that you might be making as well. I mean, that's a big thing that Munger and Buffett were key advocates for, right? Like if you could only ever pick 20 stocks in your life and you had to stamp your card every single time, like you'd be pretty careful with the stocks that you decided to buy.
That's right.
Maybe just aware of the both sides, the good and the bad.
100%. So if you have questions about this, Edward, what's the best way to get, like, if somebody has a business and they're really struggling with this idea, right? Well, I know we didn't talk much about your business today, but if they're struggling with how do I make sure that my business is not entirely dependent upon referrals, which is great if you have referrals. We get that. And I always appreciate my clients when they give me referrals, and it's a wonderful business. But if you're looking to scale and to really grow, having a repeatable system that consistently brings in people to talk about what it is that are qualified and for what you do and the value you provide, how would they get in touch with you? Because it doesn't matter that you're in Europe. A lot of our listeners, some of our listeners are actually in Europe and Canada and Mexico. We have listeners in Mexico as well, that I didn't realize until just recently. But how would they get in touch with you and just to have a conversation about, hey, is this really possible? How do you do this? And just want to talk with you. How would they do that? And we'll put it down in the show notes as well.
There's a couple of ways. You can go to my website, qualityclientacquisitions.com, or just send me a connection request on LinkedIn. You can put that somewhere down in the notes. And hey, I'm always happy to chat with people about how they can implement a system so that, again, things are just controllable, reliable, predictable. I think that's what people want, especially in more uncertain times. There can never be anything wrong. I'm never going to say take a lead that's generated over a referral. A referral will always be the best lead that you can possibly get because you should slam dunk 95+% of those ones. But you might get 3 this month. You might not get any more for 6 months. You just don't know now you said at the beginning of the call, it's a strategy that's based on hope, and that is not a strategy.
Right. 100%. Well, it's been wonderful having you on the show today, folks. Those of you who are regular listeners, you can contact me at guardianrockwealth.com, or you can text the word life, LIFE, to 321-421-5213. And you'll get a link. You will not get a bunch of spam texts. You will get a link to all sorts of free educational material. You will not even get a phone call from me unless you would like it. There's also a space there to schedule some time on my calendar. So, Edward, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I hope people got some great value out of that.
Well, worst comes to worst, I had a great conversation with you, John. I really appreciate you taking the time.
All right. We'll see everybody next time on the Building Your Life podcast.